In this video, I'm going to share with you my very first ayahuasca experience. My name is Alice. I'm from A Whole New High. Welcome to our channel. So my very first ayahuasca experience was about 10 years ago, and it was in that same year that I had my very first psilocybin magic mushroom experience. And a few months later, I traveled to South America, and I had heard about ayahuasca. It was not very popular back then. Very few people were talking about it, but somebody had told me about ayahuasca, one of my best friends, and he had told me about his whole journey. And I had been on the internet researching a lot about it, and I really wanted to do it. So my very first ayahuasca experience was an experience where I didn't feel anything. So I'm actually going to tell you about my second ayahuasca experience as my first ayahuasca experience, because it was the first one where I had an actual trip. But it's very important to know as well that the very first ayahuasca experience, it's not uncommon for people that you don't feel much. So I was in a group of people, I had my ayahuasca drink. I did vomit once, but a part of that, the rest of the evening, I was quite aware. I was awake the whole night, but I did not have a big experience, like no visions, like no insight, anything. So now a few days later only, I did my second ayahuasca experience. I was quite disappointed that the first one did not work out well. So I was in Ecuador. I was in a little village, and the people there, you always know, like, or at least that's what I thought, that you know when you are in an indigenous village and that the people there recommend their shaman to you, that then it must be a good shaman. Unfortunately, that was not the case, but at least that's what I thought. So I was like, oh wow, I'm really lucky. I found a shaman from an indigenous village, and he spoke a little bit of English. We did say that we were going to meet that same night at 7 p.m. It was already dark then, and I was there with my sister, but my sister didn't want to join, so it was just me. And I was just meeting him a few hundred meters from the hut where we were staying. And yeah, he gave me this huge bowl of ayahuasca. You know, I have done ayahuasca several times afterwards, and that was the biggest portion I ever took that very first time, or second time, you know. But that was a really big portion. He had me walk around and drink it and say my intention. My intention was just to get to know me better and have an experience. I did not come with like a problem or anything. So and maybe very important to say, at the beginning he said he would stay with me for 2 hours and then he would bring me back to my hut. And I was already like, 2 hours? That's very little time. Can you stay with me at least for 4 hours? And he agreed. So he stayed with me for 4 hours. And the ayahuasca kicked in. He brought me into a little hut. It was just him and me in that hut. It was very uncomfortable. I was lying on a stone, it was really cold. There was no mattress. It was like really not comfortable. And this time the ayahuasca kicked in, like boom, and I was in a different dimension. But it was very strange because the very first things that were happening were that I kept on saying that, like I kept on taking my phone out of my pocket and I started writing to my boyfriend at the time, and he would write back to me, and then I would write back to him, and then I realized, I'm actually not writing to him because I'm on ayahuasca and I don't have my phone, or I do have my phone, but it's turned off. And then I got these realizations. Then I would open my eyes and then I would see the shaman. He was there, and I was like, oh, okay, weird. So I would close my eyes again. Then I thought that I was in the supermarket and I was meeting friends of mine that I knew from real life. And these friends were telling me like very superficial things. And I was like, I really don't want to hear this right now. Like, I'm on ayahuasca. And then I saw the shaman next to me in the vision. And I was like, why the fuck are you bringing me here? This makes no sense. And then I opened my eyes and I realized, oh yeah, I'm actually not in the supermarket. This is vision. And um, yeah, so this happened several times at the beginning, and it was very confusing, and it was not a pleasant experience, but I guess it was just like showing me what was going on in my mind. Then the next thing that happened is that I felt like I was raised up really high, and that there was a light up there, and I was going towards that light. And then I got so high that the light was right in front of me. And I knew that light was coming out of a being. And I wanted to see that being. I could just see the light and the back of the being, but I couldn't really see much. But I just knew there was a being. So I wanted to go around the other side to see the being from the front. And then a voice said, "You're not ready to see this being yet." And then the next moment, I dropped into darkness. Like it was like a drop, lower, 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 lower. And then I was in complete and absolute darkness. And I was scared. And I said, "I'm scared." And then the voice said, "You don't need to be scared." And I said, "Well, I'm scared anyway." So I'm laughing about it now. It was not very funny back then. It was really scary. There was nothing there. It was black. It was pitch black. Um, and it was just, I just felt absolute fear. And then my time was up with the shaman, and the shaman was like, "I'm going to bring you back to your hut." And I was tripping like crazy. I was so high that, and now he wanted me to walk back to my hut and leave me alone. And in that moment, man, that was 10 years ago, I did not have the courage to speak up. And also, when you're like high on ayahuasca, generally you can't start any big negotiation or discussion. So I just stood up and went with him, and we walked up like stairs to bring me back to my hut, which was on top of a little hill overlooking the Amazon. Yeah, so he just brought me up there. I can't remember if he stayed with me long on the terrace of my hut. I don't think so. Um, the next thing I remember is I did vomit for the first time from the hut down. I was on the terrace and I vomited down into, yeah, on the ground, which was a few meters lower than me. And the shaman was still with me then when I vomited, but then at some point he left and I was still outside of the hut, haven't gone inside. And then the next thing that happens is I hear a voice of my one of my best friends who tells me, "Look down from the terrace." And I look down, and there were like 50 snakes, most of them cobras, looking at me. And you should know about me that snakes is one of my biggest fears. It was back then. Now I've worked on it a lot, so it's a lot less, but it's still there. But back then, I had the shock of my life. I thought that these snakes were attracted by my vomit, because ayahuasca is known to be the medicine of the snake, the spirit of the snake. And so I thought that because I vomited the ayahuasca out, I had attracted the snakes. It like not crossed my mind for 1 second that these snakes could be a vision. It was just so real. For me, this whole vision, like I was in the vision, this was so real. I just had no idea that I was in a different dimension or reality. So these snakes were all looking up to me, and I was in fear of my life because I thought they were after me. They wanted something from me. And then the snake started to jump on the terrace, on the balcony where I was. And there was a hammock. So I just sat in a hammock, curled myself in the, like cuddled myself in the hammock. And I thought all these snakes are jumping on the terrace, and it was full of snakes there in my vision. And I was in absolute fear. I don't know how I did it, but I got my whole courage together, even though I thought that there were snakes everywhere, to like run into the hut where my sister was, who by the way did not know much about ayahuasca or what to do with somebody who's tripping and who's really high. And she was sleeping deeply, so she did not want me to wake her up. But I got into the bed, and I was so happy I was safe from the snakes. And I first didn't wake her up, but then just a little while later, I saw the very first snake in the bed. It was a black snake with yellow eyes looking at me, like coming to, I thought coming to kill me or harm me. So again, I got so scared, and it didn't take long for 4 more snakes to appear in the bed, and I spent the rest of the time in the of the night in the bed with these snakes, and they were so real, and I was so scared. And at that point I did wake my sister up, and I said, there are snakes in the bed, and she said, there are no snakes in the bed, let me sleep. And I woke her up, and it's like, there's snakes in the bed, and she got really angry with me. And I just thought, oh my god, she doesn't know that there's snakes in the bed. She is like half asleep, and she's not in her real mind because she's so tired, so she can't see all these snakes and all the danger that is there. And yeah, so it was just really, really, really terrible. And part of me still knew this, maybe this is a vision now, like that I was in bed, but I also wasn't sure. So I just in one moment I took out my phone, I turned it on, and I thought I can call the shaman that I did the ceremony with last week. And then I could not, like, I tried to turn on my phone, but I couldn't even put in my pin to get the phone to work, because like everything was so distorted. I could not figure out, I couldn't read numbers or letters and nothing, so there was no way I could have called the shaman. So I put my phone away again, and I always had this cobra that would come up and like put her head up right next to me, and the only thing to calm the cobra down was to tell the cobra, I respect you, you are the king of the jungle, and I will do whatever you want me to do. That would calm the cobra down, and I would keep on doing that. At some point I had a vision of me being in the jungle with the same guide that had led me that same day, and while we were walking through the jungle, a snake actually came and bit me. And I told the guide, the snake bit me, I need to go to the hospital now. And the guide said, absolutely, I'll bring you to the hospital right away. And then he just started talking to other people, and he forgot about me. So I was in the middle of the jungle in the vision, and I couldn't get to the hospital. And I was just waiting for the guide to come and help me, and I thought I was going to die. And then at some point I managed to get to the hospital myself. I can't remember how, but when I got to the hospital, just even before I saw the doctor, which funnily enough was a friend of mine who's a chef in real life, but before I even talked to him, I knew that the poison the snake had put into me was, like, that the snake actually had not put any poison into me, so that it had not been a deadly bite. It was just to teach me a lesson, to make, like, bring me in touch with my fear, but it was not about me dying that day. It was just about feeling my fear to the fullest. And that really worked. My fear came back big time. I was still in, I was in my bed there. I really needed to pee. I had not the courage to get up and actually go out of the room into the separate room to pee. So I had to make into the bed. There was no option for me to get up. It was so scary. At some point I felt like there was a huge anaconda in the bed as well, and the anaconda came towards my sister, And then, because I knew if I don't move, the snakes are not going to hurt me, but my sister was sleeping, so she moved at some point, and I just heard a and I was convinced that the anaconda had killed her. And I was already saying, oh my shit, oh my god, I am responsible for my sister's death. And I like was horrified. I was in shock. I wasn't sure if she was still alive or not. But then I checked, and I could hear her breathe, so I calmed down. It was a really horrible night. Well, horrible because I had absolutely no assistant. I was completely alone on my own without a shaman who can guide me through, who can like help me release these energies, help me move through the fear. Nobody was there. That's what made it horrible, because ayahuasca in itself can really help you to bring up your trauma from your childhood, but you need to have somebody there who can help you to go through it. If you have no idea what you're doing, and if nobody who holds space or helps you to move the energy out of you, well, then it's just a really difficult and not necessarily very beneficial experience. I'm still happy I went through it, because it's part of my path. It made me who I am. It taught me a lot of lessons that I'm very thankful for, but I also would not recommend that to anybody else to do. So I knew still the whole time that once daylight comes, the snakes will be gone. And I knew it, and I held on to this thought. And the daylight came and the snakes went away. And I came down from my journey, which lasted probably around 12 hours. Really, really long and intense journey. But why I'm happy that I did it is that it brought me in touch with my fear, because I was somebody at the beginning of my 20s and also in my whole teenage years, I was completely cut off from my fear. I had suppressed my fear. I was not scared of anything. I was this photojournalist who would go to the most dangerous places in the world, and I would run around there alone, and I was like, yeah, nothing can do anything to me. I would go bungee jumping, skydiving, and all of this. Which is a really great thing to do, if you want to overcome your fear. But if you just suppress your fear and you don't even feel it, then the fear is still there, somewhere hidden in your subconscious. And at some point, it will either cause you an illness or make you sick. There is no way to keep this energy, this fearful energy, trapped in your system without it causing harm to you. So therefore, I'm very happy that I did this trip, because it really brought me in touch with my fear. However, if that happens in this way, now after this ayahuasca journey, I was scared for months. It was like PTSD. It actually was PTSD. From fear that I had collected in my childhood, in my teenage years, because there were many, very, very many fearful things that happened where I had no support and I had to suppress it. And all this fear came up at once. Well, not all at once, but in the following years, it all came, but in big chunks. So now, going into the ayahuasca experience, I was somebody who had no fears, or very few fears, except for snakes. And coming out of the ayahuasca experience, I was the most fearful being that I knew. Which some people would say was a step back, but it was actually a step forward, because now I was in touch with my fear, with the suppressed fear of my childhood and teenage years. And it was an amazing journey to go through this fear, to really reconnect with this fear, and to actually feel real safety in my being and in the world, instead of a fake safety that is just there because you have suppressed your fear. Great, this was my ayahuasca experience, my very first, or my second ayahuasca experience. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you had an experience with ayahuasca, I would love to hear about it. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'm happy to answer them. And yeah, I hope to see you here again. Check out our other videos, subscribe to our channel, and thank you for watching this video.